I'm glad we have a really nice turnout, and lucky for us, it's a really crappy day, so we're not missing a great day on the lake. So thanks everybody for coming. My name's Rusty Gowan, and I'm the president of the BLPS. So we have a really good program laid out for you today. You probably received the report that we mailed out. And there's a lot of detailed information in that report, and maybe you didn't want to read in detail all of it, but we're going to cover some of that and go into more depth. And we're going to do it in two different topics. Our first topic, we are very honored to have Heather Huffstutler here, who's the executive director of Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council. And Heather, how long have you been in that role now? 5.5 months. So she's the new executive director, and we're very pleased to have her with us on her Saturday morning. And Marcella is with her. Marcella is a key person on the watershed management plan for Black Lake, and she leads the harmful algae bloom subcommittee, which is a real important topic to all of us. So thank you both for coming. And Mark Heiser, who is giving me my technical support, but I don't see him right now. We're in the back of the room. So Mark is also a very important person to us. We've been working with Mark's firm for about 2 years now, and we've really accelerated our learnings about how our lake behaves. And he's deployed all kinds of instrumentation and skilled people that have gathered this data and analyzed it and drawn some insights. And this kind of detailed, real focused analysis has been so valuable to us, and we're really grateful to Mark, and I think you'll enjoy hearing from him. So the BLPS, if you're not familiar with us, our mission is simple. It's just preservation oriented. So what this really means is we're not really involved in the recreational needs of people around the lake, or economic development, or even social events. We're purely focused on preservation. That's not to say that any of us don't value the recreation and economic growth and social events that other groups have. We do, and many of us are members of multiple organizations for that purpose, but we sensed the need on the preservation side of things and aim to fill it. Our guiding principles have not changed in the years that we've been working, and I'm kind of rewording them because they're very wordy on the website, but the first one is, and this is true with any quality management type program, the longer you wait to address a known issue, the harder, more expensive it is to fix. My background, I lived in the Chesapeake Bay, which was a very much degraded body of water. And because of that, I'm really aware that once it gets to that point, there's no going back. I mean, you can spend a lot of money and a lot of effort, and the Chesapeake Bay has spent a lot of money on restoration, and you can make incremental improvements, but you're not getting it back. So a lot of people say, we have this beautiful pristine lake, why are you getting so worried about these little problems? We're getting worried about them so they don't become big problems. The lakes around you that you see that are heavily degraded, they also saw little tiny problems, didn't act, and that's why they're in the state that they are. So the second one is that there's no need to reinvent the wheel. I was surprised when I learned years ago that there are over 1,000 lakes in Michigan, over 100 acres. So that means there are a lot of communities like ours facing the same issues, and you can learn either from what they've done or what they haven't done that results in the state of the water the way it is. So we're pretty tuned into the lake associations that have been very successful and what their techniques have been, and also in the lakes that are not very successful and how they got where they are. The third one, and I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, is you can't outsource preservation, you need to weigh in. So by your presence here, it says that you're interested in the topic, you're interested in learning and engaging. That's really what we're looking for. You can't write a $25 check to an association and say, okay, tag, you're it. It's now your problem to fix. You kind of have to learn. More than 90% of our lakefront, is private property. There's no one that's going to step in and change what you do on your property, what decisions you make, what your behaviors are. No one but you. So if you're not paying attention and learning, and we're trying to do a lot of studies to short circuit the learning, but it's really up to all of us as property owners to change that. So the way that we've behaved over time, or operated I should say, is there tends to be a crisis of the day, and some might say that we overreact on these, but the first crisis was the emergence of zebra mussels, and wherever Linda Sandvik in the back, she's the person that discovered zebra mussels in our lake. So either blame her or thank her, however you want to do it. She and her daughter out swimming at the raft found zebra mussels and brought it to the attention of people. And that's a tricky one because there aren't ready answers to eliminate them. It's hard to think that we're going to go back to how things were, and it points out the importance of prevention, but that was sort of a big challenge to us. In 2016, the next big challenge we focused on was that we had an enormous amount of shoreline destruction, especially on the South Shore, from high water in the spring that didn't need to be as high as it was, and it didn't need to be high as long as it was. And we gathered an enormous amount of data and tried to create a community response to the fact that the dam owner was holding water back in order to boost their power yields, in order to bolster their balance sheet, in order to increase their sales price. And they won. That's exactly what they did. They were holding water back in our lake, exposing us to damage on our shoreline. Well, now we have a new owner. We have a new protocol to protect us from that. It's not everything that we wanted. And unfortunately, the winds have changed. There's an article at the back of the report that we mailed out that shows that the direction that this is taking is not toward citizen protection here. It's really toward protecting counties and local authorities that are responsible for maintaining a stated lake level. So then 2018, swimmer's itch changed from a murmur to a roar when too many people were getting bad cases of swimmer's itch, and we hired swimmer's itch solutions to study the water and identify the DNA of the parasite that is in our water, and most of it was from a pairing of the common merganser with a certain type of snail that we have in the lake. And to break that chain, they were trapping the common mergansers and moving them to bodies of water that didn't have that snail that completes the chain. And it takes a couple of years to weed out the parasites, and it was going really well, and the avian flu came along and we're no longer able to move the birds. So we're slipping back to where it was. Right, Ed? Ed had a good solid case of swimmer's itch early this year, and maybe some of you others have. The more recent alarm went off with harmful algae blooms, and again I go back to my days of the Chesapeake Bay, where one spring, and we have kind of brackish water, but we had so much rain, it turned fresh, and we had a small mussel just like zebra mussels that clarified the little bay that we lived on. And the dogs in the community were dying. And the vets were filled up with dogs that are on life support because their livers were failing. And it's because they were in this water with harmful algae blooms. And so I was already sensitized to this issue when I was out fishing with David Sandvik and I think Dale Rocco. And we created a wake through the bloom across the whole lake on a really still fall day. And we reported it to Eagle and had the health department look at the results, and sure enough, it was a harmful algae bloom. And sometimes those algae blooms of cyanobacteria, Mark will talk a lot more about this, sometimes they have the DNA that will produce a liver toxin and sometimes they don't. Unfortunately, we have the type that produces a liver toxin. So it becomes a very important topic, and it's really why we're having this meeting today, or a big leading reason, and the things that we're doing are largely because of our experience with harmful algae blooms. The next one is invasive Eurasian milfoil. Most of the lakes around here have invasive Eurasian milfoil. Most of them have tax districts, which means an amount added to your property tax bill to cover the cost of managing invasive Eurasian milfoil. It creates dense mats at the surface that are difficult to navigate through. They make swimming very unpleasant, and the appearance of the lake changes. This is a really bad weed. It's why we've worked with the Watershed Council on their mobile boat washes. It's why we've worked with Eagle on the media blitz campaigns. It's why Linda Sandvik has worked tirelessly on signage at the state park and all the road end signs to prevent this. And this is the one we've all been thinking about, is invasive Eurasian milfoil. To go back to the first guiding principle, the earlier you catch it, the better chance you have of managing and controlling it. But the lakes around us, like well, we heard at a Watershed Council event from Walloon Lake, and they spend $10,000 a year on they also caught it pretty early and just had spotty emergencies, and it's an expensive problem to stay on top of. So who knows what the future crises will be? Could be PFAS, could be quagga mussels, it could be changes to our nice sandy bottom, could be bull sharks, not really. But who knows what it'll be. But we're trying to get early detection and do a bunch of arm waving, and everybody can say, oh my gosh, is that really a problem? So everybody can see this chart, right? Okay, you can't read it, but what it is a list of the harmful algae blooms that were reported through Eagle to the health department. And if you could see the detail, it would tell you a few interesting things. The first is that we only have 5 different beaches reporting, and of all the beaches around the lake, it's a little suspicious that we're only getting reports from 5. What it means is we still, as a community, are not educated about HABs. We don't have our eyes and ears and nose open to spot it. So that's got to change. The second thing you'll notice is a lot of them are non-detect, and the reasons for that is you depend on phone calls to the health department. This woman named Claire Lowe, who was really, really attentive to our needs, talking to her, and she said a kid's birthday party, and you got to get someone there before the wind and the waves dissipates the bloom, and that didn't always happen. So now we're equipped with our own tests, our own way to gather samples, and Mark has helped us be self-sufficient in getting solid detections. This list shows that we have 4 positive readings in 2020, 4 in 2021. Begs the question, why not in 22 and 23? Well, maybe it's weather, maybe it's the Fresh Start program that Steve Speth has headed up in our septic program, that Jody McKee and John Muller, and I don't see John, but there's John in the back door. They were going door to door and talking to people about, let's do it. The Fresh Start is, let's pump out our septic systems this year. Let's get on a sensible rotation of pumping out on a schedule. Maybe that had something to do with the turnaround in 22 and 23. Marcus is looking into verifying all of these theories and guesses that we have and turn our arm waving into showing slides and talking about some real facts. It's also suspicious that we didn't have any before 2020, and it makes me wonder if we just weren't looking for them. So luckily, we haven't had any cases with dogs or kids, and we intend to keep it that way. So BLPS, our response to HABs has been, well, years ago, we were working with Brenda Archambault with the Sturgeon for Tomorrow and Caroline Keeson from the Watershed Council. And we said we really need to get a watershed management plan formed, and the Watershed Council applied for grant money to do this project a few times. It's highly competitive to be awarded, and we're very pleased that we were awarded the opportunity to go through a watershed management plan. They're going to tell us more about that, but it's been a few years in the making. We're in the midst of it now. We also did some HABs best practice sharing, and we worked with the Watershed Council to create a brochure that we mailed to you. Can somebody hold up the black brochure? So if you recognize that, that was sent to everyone's mailbox. And we did something creative with HABS, which was H for have a healthy septic, A is avoid fertilizers, B is build up of vegetative bufferage or shoreline, and S is self-assess your property. And that's another brochure that maybe Heather can find that one too, which tells you how to go to a website and for the shoreland stewards and do a self-assessment. And your response is anonymous, but I can tell you that I did it with my family, and you go through all of these questions, and I've spent a lot of time studying and working in conservation matters, but I learned a lot by going through that questionnaire. In fact, just yesterday, I dragged one of my neighbor's small trees that had fallen and dragged it to my shoreline to create a little habitat out there. So I never, ever would have done that if I didn't go through that. And maybe you think that's a silly thing to do, but my neighbors do, but what are you doing? So where is Marie? Marie Solon back here. She's a superstar, and she enrolled us in the citizen-led monitoring program. For the first time, Black Lake enrolled in that program. So in-depth data collection, Marie is very qualified to do this. She's a scientist. She is a teacher in geology and a researcher. The data that she has collected has been very helpful to Mark and to our learning about the lake. And anybody that wants to work with her, she's very knowledgeable. It's fun to work with her, and she has lots of opportunities in stream monitoring and lake monitoring. And of course, we created our relationship with Kaiser & Associates for a long-term involvement. So at that point, I'm going to turn things over to the Watershed Council. I want to thank you again for coming on a Saturday morning. This is a really big commitment that you've all shown, and we very, very much appreciate you being here. Thanks.
Lowering it. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us, Rusty. We appreciate the invitation to be with you all. I'm Heather Hofstetler. I'm the Executive Director at Tip of the Mid-Watershed Council. And like Rusty forced me to say, I've been at the Watershed Council for about 4.5 months or 5 months. I've lost count now because it seems like I've been around for longer than that. I'll give you a little bit of my background. Some of you might know me from a couple of my last jobs. When I first moved back to northern Michigan, I worked for the Wallen Lake Trust and Conservancy before it merged with the Wallen Lake Association. So I am familiar with the work of lake associations and water quality work. I have worked for the last 25 years in land protection work for land trusts across the Great Lakes region and in the Southeast. Just previous to the Watershed Council, I worked for Huron Pines. I started their land protection program, and then most recently was their development director. So I worked with in the Black Lake Watershed on lots of land protection projects as well. So I'm happy to be still working in this watershed. So Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council, if you're not familiar with our work, we speak for Northern Michigan's waters. We do that in several different ways. We do that through an innovative and exciting education programs. We do that through community building. We do that through monitoring and research, some of which Marcella will talk to you about in a minute. And we do that through respected advocacy. Our efforts across the region are bolstered and supported by community members and associations like yours. I'll just want to echo Rusty's encouragement to become involved not only with your local lake associations, with BLPS and all of the efforts that this organization has done, but also with organizations like Tip of the Mitt and other regional organizations, because our work affects all of the local associations' work as well. All of you in this room, all of us in this room, have a responsibility not only to this watershed, but to, this watershed is connected to the region, right? So we all, the more we know together, the better off we all are, in my opinion. And so the more your committed groups and the rest of our committed groups do together, I think the more we accomplish. So when we get together, explore a lot of these challenges that Rusty just described, learn more about them, and come to some solutions, we can do all of these things together. So we're excited about these collaborative efforts. And so just to sort of reiterate also, so we're supported by association memberships, by federal grants, by state grants, and by individuals. So we just appreciate all of that support and hope that we continue this great partnership that we have. So I'll let Marcella go on to talk about watershed management plans and what those all do and mean. Thanks.
All right, good morning everyone. I'm Marcella Domka. I am the Water Resources Manager at Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council. I've been there just over a year, started in May 2023, so a year and change. I just completed my master's program in Fisheries and Wildlife and Ecology, Evolution and Behavior at Michigan State University, and then I directly came to the Watershed Council. So I've had a wonderful experience there so far, and I've had a great 5 months working with Heather. So I'm just going to elaborate a bit on the watershed management plan that Rusty and Heather have been describing a bit, and kind of update you about the progress regarding that. So the watershed management plan is really a collaborative plan designed to protect impaired waters from non-point source pollution, as well, or protect critical freshwater resources and restore impaired waters that have been affected by non-point source pollution. And this is really done through sound science, encouraging interagency communications, very strong partnerships like the one that exists between BLPS and Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council. And we really seek to maintain this high level of communication throughout the whole process. So when we identify threats to the watershed itself, we basically look at resource inventories, and we use water quality monitoring data, of which I am kind of in charge of developing and implementing that watershed water quality monitoring plan. So resource inventories have been conducted by the University of Michigan School for Environmental Sustainability. Yes, the U of MC students. That was conducted last August in 2023. So they conducted resource inventories by actually going out in the field and looking at different factors such as agricultural cover, forestry and land cover, stream bank erosion, road stream crossings, kind of looking at all of those different components that make up a healthy watershed, and assessing those to understand and provide us with data that we can use going forward to identify what areas of the watershed may be the most vulnerable or in need of protection. And then the water quality monitoring efforts that I am sort of managing and delegating to several important staff members at Tip of the Mitt are designed to monitor Black Lake itself, as well as 8 of its most critical tributaries. So we looked at pre-existing environmental data to identify which tributaries would be in the most need of further monitoring. Maybe they had E. coli issues, nitrogen and phosphorus exceedances, stuff like that. And so we have a lake monitoring plan for the next 2 years, as well as a tributary monitoring plan. And that water quality monitoring is well underway. We've done our first tributary dry weather sampling event. It was a 12-hour day, so I'm very grateful to the staff that helped us to accomplish that. And then the lake monitoring began in July as well. And all the monitoring is detailed through a quality assurance project plan that is approved by Eagle, and Eagle staff help me to sort of manage and review that as the grant goes by. Let me check my notes here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything here. So once we kind of identify those critical threats and complete the resource inventories and water quality monitoring, we go through this protection and management process, as that is what the watershed management plan is designed to do. We accomplish this through implementation tasks. So those are actions that are encompassing kind of numerous areas, including ecosystem health, threatened and endangered species, recreation, hydrology, and groundwater. Again, critical components of a very healthy watershed. So when we develop these implementation tasks, we think of different actions that fall under specific categories. So let's say we're trying to increase shoreline protection in the watershed. We may encourage and implement specific tasks such as shoreline surveys, installation of riparian buffers, strengthening of local protection ordinances. So it's not just really on the water quality side, it's about water quality, policy, education, communication, all of these different components coming together. And one sort of note I want to make about watershed management plans is that in general they're very beneficial for pursuing additional funding, as it shows funders and those that provide us with grant money to accomplish these tasks that we've kind of done our homework, and we are able to work with partners and stakeholders to determine the best next steps for natural resource protection. So like I've said, the progress on the watershed management plan is well underway. Water quality monitoring is taking place, and our goal is to have the final plan approved by early 2026. So that's where we're at right now. I don't know if we wanted to do questions now or later.
I'll just add, these plans are built for the full community to be part of implementing. So it's not just that Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council goes after grants, it's that a township can go after a grant to help implement on behalf of the lake or behalf of a critical area within the watershed. BLPS can go after a grant in collaboration with a unit of government or in collaboration with the Watershed Council or another organization that's eligible for grants, right? So these are community-led projects that the Watershed Council can assist on, but it's not our plan, it's your plan, it's the community's plan.
Absolutely. All right, so Rusty mentioned that we should do a bathroom water bio break, so we'll reconvene after that.